Welcome to today's lecture. We are in Unit 5, Data Collection Methods. I'm absolutely thrilled to be your guide today, because let's be honest, data is literally the lifeblood of any research. Put simply, good research is fundamentally built on quality data. So if you're a student gearing up to conduct your very first real research project, consider this explainer your ultimate mentor and guide. We're going to walk through exactly how to set your project up for absolute success.
Okay, let's dive into this with my absolute biggest warning to you as a researcher. You've got to get this right the first time. Once the data is collected, it is incredibly costly in both time and effort to do it all over again. In fact, because our environments are dynamic and circumstances change so fast, going back and repeating the process to get the exact same baseline data, that's often flat out impossible. It's a one-shot deal, so we need to be incredibly well prepared.
Here's our syllabus for today's explainer. We'll hit Welcome to Unit 5, Defining Your Research Blueprint, Choosing Your Data Methods, Designing and Pilot Testing, the Human Element, Ethics, and finally, Finalizing Your Data Collection.
Let's kick things off with Section 1. Welcome to Unit 5, Understanding the Stakes of Data Collection.
Now, before we jump into the actual checklist, we got to level set on what data actually represents. I promise you, it's far more than just boring numbers sitting on a spreadsheet. Data really refers to the information or the factors that you observe, collect, or generate during your study. You're using it to describe and explain phenomena that exist out there in the real world. Why is this so critical? Well, because accurate, reliable data that passes through your careful analysis becomes the bedrock information that decision-makers rely on. Without quality data, leaders make poor decisions. But with it, they can make highly informed, truly impactful choices.
Moving right along to Section 2, Defining Your Research Blueprint, Setting Up for Success.
All right, this is where we officially begin our chronological 8-step checklist. These initial steps are all about building an absolute rock-solid foundation to ensure your data is collected accurately and consistently. Step 1, clearly define your research question or objective. You have to articulate exactly what specific information you need to achieve your goals. No vague ideas here. Step 2 is identifying your data variables. These are the relevant, measurable factors that will actually answer that research question of yours. And Step 3 is choosing the appropriate data collection method to gather those variables, keeping in mind the resources you actually have available to you.
And this brilliantly illustrates how you document those first steps systematically. Take the first example. If your research question is about finding out the preferred smartphones among consumers aged 18 to 35, your variable is smartphone features. The measurable features you'd actually ask people about would be things like camera quality, battery life, or screen size. Or take a look at the second example. If you want to figure out the effect of service quality, your variables are service quality dimensions and customer satisfaction. Mapping it out exactly like this ensures your high-level objective translates perfectly into measurable, real-world data.
Now for Section 3, Choosing Your Data Methods, Primary versus Secondary.
This expands perfectly on Step 3 of our blueprint. How do we actually go about gathering the data we just identified? Well, you generally have two paths you can take, primary and secondary data. Primary data is fresh, first-hand data collected for the very first time. Think surveys, face-to-face interviews, or focus groups. You absolutely must use primary data if you're exploring brand new insights where no information currently exists. Secondary data, on the other hand, is existing data from places like government databases or academic publications. If your project is assessing trends over time and reliable secondary data is already out there, use it. Seriously, it's going to save you a massive amount of resources.
Let's move over to Section 4, Designing and Pilot Testing, Crafting the Instrument.
Once you know your method, you have to craft the actual tools, the instruments that you're going to use to extract data from your participants, like a well-structured questionnaire or maybe an interview guide. That brings us to Step 4, Designing the Data Collection Instrument. Your questions must be crystal clear, well-structured, and completely unbiased. For instance, you might design a survey asking participants to rank their smartphone satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 5. But hey, you can't just send that out into the wild immediately. You must always move to Step 5, conducting a pilot test. You literally have to test your instrument before full implementation. Now, what's really interesting about this is the surprisingly small number for your pilot test, just 30 to 40. That's it. You really don't need hundreds of people. Testing your survey on a small sample of 30 to 40 individuals helps you catch those awkward misunderstandings, confusing wording, and nasty validity errors. It basically allows you to examine how people actually respond, so you can fix any hidden flaws before you launch your large-scale survey.
It's an absolutely critical quality control step you shouldn't skip.
This brings us to Section 5, the human element. Ethics, protecting your participants.
Taking on the role of a researcher means taking on a massive amount of responsibility. Human subjects require your absolute, unwavering respect. You see, data collection isn't just about spreadsheets. It requires specific ethical knowledge, strong interpersonal skills, and a really deep consideration for the people actually helping you out. So step 6 is to properly train your data collectors. If you've got multiple people helping you gather information, you must train them on the procedures and the ethical guidelines, so everyone is on the exact same page. Then, step 7, and this is arguably the most important ethical step of all, is to obtain informed consent from every single human subject involved in your study.
As your mentor here, I want to give you a really direct checklist for avoiding common pitfalls during those participant interactions. First, always explain the survey's exact purpose right up front. Second, patiently address any questions they might have. Third, respect their privacy and handle their data securely. Literally never compromise their anonymity if you promised it. And finally, you must offer them the absolute right to withdraw from the study at any step, no questions asked.
So, the crucial point is understanding exactly what informed consent actually looks like in practice. Usually this takes the form of a cover page right on your questionnaire. It clearly explains the objective, how you'll handle their data, and explicitly states their absolute right to interrupt or withdraw at any point. A participant's power to say no is a hard, non-negotiable rule of scientific research.
We finally reached Section 6, finalizing your data collection, executing the plan.
Okay, now that your methodology is dialed in perfectly and your ethical safeguards are firmly locked in place, it's time to bring this home. Step 8 is the actual collection of the data. Notice how this is the very last step. The actual gathering of information is entirely dependent on the preparation you've already done. Strictly respecting steps 1 through 7 is exactly what guarantees that the data you collect in step 8 will be accurate, consistent, and reliable. And honestly, that's the real secret sauce to a successful first research project. We've covered the 8 steps, from defining your variables to testing your instruments, right down to the non-negotiable ethical guidelines of informed consent. You have the blueprint and you have the ethics. So, the only thing left to ask is, are you ready to collect your data? I highly encourage you to take this checklist, apply it to your real-world research, and go make some incredible discoveries. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.